It was at this moment that he knew.
He bucked up. Welcome. You're listening to Bucked Up with Sam Buck.
Fucked up. Now you fucked up. Now you fucked up. Now you fucked up. Now you have fucked up.
When I was doing your research, I was like, oh shit, it's like an omen. She's from Buffalo too. And you're not really a rapper, but you're rap adjacent.
Adjacent for sure. I'm in raps. Would I rap outside of the show? I think not. I've considered doing like rapping on Instagram, but I'm like, don't do that. That's pandering, you know?
Yeah, no, I was on a dating show, like a podcast, like a dating show podcast. And one of the challenges was freestyle rap, and I listened to so much rap. I mean, that's my dentist background, is 3 rap records, that I was like, I can't do it. So I'll do like a scat sing, like I'll scat for you, but I can't freestyle rap. And I got eliminated for it.
Oh, well, it wasn't meant to be. And also freestyle rapping is really hard.
So you don't listen to rap? You're not like
I'm like a big pop person. I'm really lame. Everyone should know that before I even say anything. I do like mostly pop stuff. In college, I was way into like indie rock and stuff like that. And then rap, I like a few songs from each album, but if I listen to the whole album, I don't know.
Well, of course you're on Wild and Out. Everyone, we just kind of start this thing. Welcome to the podcast. This is Maddy Smith. I'm a big fan of your stand-up, and I saw on Wild and Out, which it's funny that you're not a rap fan, that you just was it just kind of like, oh, this is something I want to do, like this is something I should try to do?
So it was a little bit of, I saw a posting that Wild and Out was looking for rap and roast battlers, and I just auditioned and then I got it. So
that's the best way to do it. I feel like if you were like a fan, you might be too nervous, but when you're just like, well, it's just another thing then.
Totally. Like the first day of like, they have like a week of auditions before the show even starts to test you out more. And that whole week I was around like all the people who are on the show, and I didn't really watch the show, so I didn't know who they were. So I wasn't nervous. So I was like roasting them. And then I would go up to my hotel room and see that they have like 5 million Instagram followers. And I'd be like, oh shit, I probably shouldn't have said that to them. But I feel like if someone was a fan of the show, they would have been like, oh, I don't want to go after them.
Yeah, but you're just like, I don't give a fuck.
I don't give a fuck. But I also feel like doing like roast battles in New York City, you're just like hardened and you're like, I don't care. We're supposed to roast each other, so I'm just gonna go after you. Like if I was against like a famous comedian, I would also roast them hard and just like a regular roast battle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like a loser. I mean, I still probably am a loser, but I was a loser growing up and a loner and just like a comedy nerd fan. Like I would just go to shows and meet comedians, and I was 15, 16. And so when I meet comedians, I don't really get like like I do stand up, as you do too. I don't get like nervous around comedians, but rappers, that's why when I like, it's funny to hear you say that, because like I've met many rappers and I always I get so nervous because it's the thing I can't do type of mentality.
Yeah, I guess I would then maybe be nervous around I don't know. You know who makes me nervous is like academics, like really smart people.
Yeah.
I just find that their knowledge is vast and anything I say is just like surface level of what they know. I get really intimidated around academics, and I didn't
I
get
feel
good
like they're
grades in
very
college.
boring people though.
What do you think? They're boring?
They're boring,
but they think they're the shit.
That is true. I grew up kind of in a family of academics, and I'm not a big fan of that. And I don't think they're a big fan of what I do either. But it's just kind of like, oh, what were you saying? Sorry.
They can be pretty judgmental. Like if you're an academic and you marry an academic and your kid doesn't go into academia, they're gonna like be disappointed, because they always are like, higher education is the best thing you can do.
Yeah.
They're so into themselves.
And it's but you kind of like, my dad was a death metal drummer, and my mom is a teacher. And they're kind of like opposites attract, but not really. Opposites only attract for like a certain amount of time. It doesn't usually work. Like you can't be like a death metal drummer and a teacher aren't going to work out.
So are they divorced now?
100%. Yeah, 100%. That's why I'm a comedian, I think. I don't know.
Mine are too.
You're
Mine
a
are-
wicked. I love your comedy. Like I love watching your clips. You're personal and you're a storyteller, but you're fast with it. I don't know. I'm happy you're on for that too, because
Thank you. I really appreciate that. You know what, Sam? It's been a hard couple months in the digital realm. I keep seeing all these people pop off with their digital shit. Not gonna lie, for being real, it makes me pretty insecure because I'm like, I keep using that lazy mentality of like, I'm meant to be live, but I just love performing live. And like the digital thing doesn't get me going the same way live stuff does. And the longer the pandemic goes, the more I'm like, am I funny? Like, what the fuck is going on here?
yeah, I am the same way with Zoom shows where it's kind of like, oh no, I'm people get me better in person, but then I see
Right.
more and more people doing it, and it's kind of like, am I just being lazy at this point? Like, am I just kind of being like, am I the guy who wants to be in shape but doesn't want to go to the gym type thing?
Right. I think it's good to give it your all, but if it doesn't like pop off or if it doesn't click mentally, it's okay to abandon it when stand up returns. I think for now, it's good to do all the stuff, but I think mentally, I'm like, I'm done with this when we're back to gigs because I'm
Yeah.
not an Instagram comedian. You know what I mean? And I do my best. But at the end of the day, I just want to be in bed and waiting for everything to be over.
100%. Well, that's like, I love doing Zoom interviews. Like, I'm so happy that we get to talk, but it's not the same in person.
Right.
Like, it isn't like, even with, it's not the same. There is a different connection when you're face to face, either with an audience or with another person in a conversation.
Yeah.
And it's at the beginning of the pandemic, they took all the basketball hoops off of the boards, so it's just like a basketball board. And I saw this guy on Facebook who was like, Zoom, Liam, very funny comedian, Liam McGurk, I'll give him a shout out. He was like, Zoom comedy is like, he saw a guy shooting basketball without a hoop just against the board. He's like, Zoom comedy is a lot like that. Like, maybe it's not doing anything, but to him, like, he's trying to work on something.
Totally.
And it was like, it was a beautiful sentiment, but it's silly, but it's kind of like, damn, am I just being lazy with that? Like, am I just...
No, I think there's like, I mean, I don't think you're being lazy. I think there's a reality of like, oh, I started stand up to be a live performer. I think there's something about being in a venue and being in front of people, and it's not the same thing on the internet. There is some sort of like minor fulfilling qualities of doing digital and Zoom stuff, but it's not the same at all. I wouldn't say lazy because you're doing a podcast through Zoom. I would say do as much as you can or want to, but don't do too much where it feels like you're like killing yourself over the internet.
Do you feel you have multiple podcasts? Do you feel do you feel overworked?
You know, the hard thing with podcasts is it is a lot of work. It's a lot of like promo and networking with other podcasters and stuff like that. And so I think that's my least favorite thing. I love recording and I love like chopping up clips and stuff like that, but the promo can really get you down.
Oh,
too.
it sucks. Yeah.
And I think that's pretty universal. Like, you know, even just like making the Instagram account for the podcast and doing all that, I like, man, it sucks if you have under 300,000 Instagram followers or whatever platform. It's going to be a long road doing a podcast.
Yeah. So it didn't really help you. I mean, I guess everything that sucks. You got like a big bump, I bet, from being on the show, and then it stopped the recording and everything.
Yeah, it stopped recording, and you know, I think The podcast is my new one is like 3 episodes out, so I'm not trying to be that like dramatic person who's like, oh my god, no one's listening, because there's literally only 3 episodes out. But I think the hard thing for me is I'm seeing through the lens of, oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. My internet said something. I think it's hard for me because I'm seeing through the lens of I'm the white girl on Wild 'N Out. But before I joined the show, I was kind of just a stand-up comedian who made like jokes about debt and sex and all sorts of stuff. And so I think translating that to like a podcast that's like current events, that's me with my girls, is hard because it's sort of like a meme culture following.
100%. I don't have the same type of following that you do in that, but I get it being like, oh, I'm the white guy who loves rap music, like I'm interviewing rap, and it's just kind of like you want to be taken more seriously, but that's also not everything that's about it. Like
Totally. And it's hard to pivot. And at some point I was going to have to like grow up in terms of my public kind of persona, whether it be like through a late night set, which is not possible right now, or a podcast. So that's what I'm doing, is kind of just growing pains of, I have kind of like more to offer than just being the girl with the flat ass on Wild 'N Out. And and I want to do that with my podcast, but it's hard. But you also with podcasts,
that's what you were going to like be? Like did you know that was going to be the character you were going to come out of it with, or was it did it blindside you?
I guess it kind of blindsided me. I guess I didn't know what to expect because I got all of my following during quarantine. So I've kind of just been going with it because if the following came out and there was no quarantine, I would have been doing stand-up. I would have posted stand-up clips and all sorts of stuff, but I have to kind of make up for it with, just like quarantine content, which is, a little harder to come up with new stuff.
Yeah, 100%. It's weird. It's like I feel less creative with more time. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like my job before I did all this was I did marketing for like chain restaurants. So I learned how to like do promo and learn how to kind of like work Instagram and stuff like that. And when I was doing that, I was working 50 hours a week. I was driving over an hour and a half each way to do stand up each night. And I was in a long distance relationship, but I felt like I was getting a lot of writing done. Like I felt like now that I don't have much, I just feel kind of like lazy. I don't want to do the work.
Well, there's also probably like a kind of like depressive state of your brain because everything's in a standstill. So where would you even get motivation to write? It's like
that's true. I've only been in long distance relationships, so I feel like I should be better at Zoom. Like every girl I've dated has lived out of state. So
that's true. That's a good point. But yeah, I guess that is a good point. You should be doing more Zoom stand up, but it's hard to, because you're like, oh, the vaccine, everyone will get it by the summer. You're like, okay, so I have 6 months to get my shit together. Why would I start now?
100. Yeah, it's kind of like when you were in school and you had a writing assignment for like 3 months away, and then it's the 2 days before and you're like, oh shit, I gotta finish this. And you don't really learn. You think you're gonna learn from like, but it's kind of the world changes and the scenarios you're in are changed, but you're pretty much the same. Like
literally the same. I've been like this since grade school, last minute science project, night before that you knew, book report night before, and then even like now, like writing jokes the night before an assignment, packets up to the date they're due. I'm so last minute. It hurts. I'm getting a little better, but I'll do like 1 week of on time stuff, and then the next is like pure last minute. There's no consistency. And I think that's 2 types of people, is you procrastinate or you just do your shit when you're supposed to. And I think it has to do with your upbringing. Were you raised by nurturing parents, or were you in a hands-off household where you had to form your own rules and then you got fucked by that? That's my theory.
What did you grow up in? Which one were you?
Hands-off. A household where no one was watching what I did, or they didn't even know like what grade I was in. So, you know, you have to like form your own way of life in like middle and high school. That's when my parents got divorced and they started like not watching what I did. And
Yeah.
that's how you form like really bad habits, I think.
Well, it's funny. So of course, this isn't all what my set's about, but I do have a lot of sex jokes, as do you. I think that's why I really liked your stuff, because you're open about it.
Yeah.
But I come from the other side of it. Like, I come from a very hands-on family, and I think my stand-up, I'm not a shock comic, and I don't want to be, but like, I think the kind of like openness to talk about stuff that people don't want to talk about comes from being like very like, I don't want to be like this cared for, like I just want to be free. But it's funny that you come from the other side of it, but it comes to the same end point.
Totally. Maybe it's the two extremes, fuck up kids, and you have to be somewhere in the middle of like,
100%.
which like most parents are not.
No, but humans are just a long line of people being fucked up by the people who didn't know better beforehand.
It goes back before my dad's dad, years of Irish people not showing feelings, years of, you know,
Everybody love everybody.
potato famines. It's a long line of sadness.
So I'm Mayflower white. I'm old school white.
Nice.
And I was told it's not nice is not the
Hell yeah, dude.
yeah, rock on. But I was told growing up that I was a direct descendant of Robert E. Lee. This is why you shouldn't have said nice.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm gonna lose a lot of my followers on this. But I actually I grew up and I met a bunch of other people who said they were were told they were related to Robert E. Lee. And honestly, now I just think it's something that like just tell to their families. Like, I think that, like, I don't know if I'm related. I know I'm Southern white, but I don't even think I'm related to Robert E. Lee, which is kind of a weight off my chest. Because,
well, he's like the Genghis Khan of North America. You know, everyone's
yeah,
related.
he is.
I feel
I don't know where that tangent went off on. I'm sorry. I just
no. Yeah, white people. Yeah. So do you feel regret because you're related to Robert E. Lee?
No, but it is funny when people are like, it wasn't my ancestors, and I have to be like, it was my my ancestors. I have to
Totally. Even if it wasn't your ancestors were probably involved in some shady shit.
100%. There's a picture of me in 4th grade dressed up as Robert E. Lee because like my family wanted me to like.
Oh.
Yeah. That was. I don't think I'm ever getting on Wild 'N Out. I'm just kidding.
Oh wait, if you got on that, someone would dig that up and be like, "Is this you?"
Yeah. So how old are you?
28.
Am I allowed to ask that? All right, I'm 23. And we came up right around like the beginning of social media. I feel like the origin of it. Totally. And I look back and I'm like, when I was 16 and like whether it be heartbroken or angry, I said some crazy shit online that definitely like there was no filter. I feel like when I was like 16, you didn't think about it.
Totally. I went through like a breakup. I think I was more of like an AIM profile girl with like the broken heart in the profile when I went through breakup, and then another one where my long-term boyfriend and I were on a break and we were posting like emotional Facebook statuses with like song lyrics in them. That's the craziest side.
Oh yeah. When you would like tweet a text to them because you didn't want to text them, but you knew they would see that, and then like
I think we might have had each other's numbers blocked because we didn't want to. We were like, we're not allowed to talk. We need to fix ourselves. But then we would just communicate through Facebook status. Song lyrics going back and forth, which was like the gayest shit I could ever do.
Yeah, I'll be like, I don't want to have like the talk. I want to get rid of toxic traits that I saw. But then like we just kind of created our own, not we, but just like creating your own. Because definitely social media, I try to like take a step back and be like, how much am I posting this for myself versus like
Right.
not wanting people to see, but you know what I mean? It's like, it's tough,
And that's social
especially when you're
media.
trying to grow.
I know. Social media, I think, is ruining people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Well, we were talking about the promo on the podcast. Like, I have to spend hours just doing what I'm trying to like grow myself, and it's like I want us to get those hours off my phone.
I know, it's really hard. And like the social dilemma, the Netflix documentary is telling us our phones are poisoning us. Well, we have to be on them, and we have to scroll to see what people are liking. Like, we have to do that shit. And it's so annoying because the more you scroll, the more you're triggered by other people. You're like, they got that, their tweet went viral. They're not even, you see like people have like followings now that didn't before the quarantine. You're like, but you're not even good at stand-up. How is that fair? And you are saying stuff out loud that's not even part of who you are. It's the most toxic thing ever, but you have to be on there. TikTok
100%.
is incredibly addictive.
Yeah, and people get famous off I'll be like, I get mad at how big people get huge off TikTok.
It's crazy.
And I feel like a grandpa. I need someone to just like teach me how to do it. I don't know how to make a TikTok.
So crazy. I do think it's the future though. I think Instagram is dying a little bit. I think it's like once you get to TikTok and then you get to Instagram, you're like, why would I be here when I can be over there? Instagram is like weed. TikTok's like crack. You're just going to stay there.
Isn't that what Snapchat used to be? And now no one goes on Snapchat.
No one goes on Snapchat.
They just made it too much like a fucking, with all the news story. It's too much. I hate it.
I agree. But I do think Instagram with its like shopping and like all sorts of features that mess people up, it might be over.
I used to be a person who was like, ads don't work on me. Like when I would watch TV, I'd be like, that shit isn't working. But now like my algorithm knows I like buying rap merch. Like I'm wearing a new one right now. That like that's all it offers me. And I'm kind of like, fuck, it works now. Like I'm spending so much money on clothes I don't need.
No, I will say that everything I've bought off Instagram has been pure garbage. So when it comes in the mail, it does not look like what was in the ad. So I do think I'm done with Instagram purchases. However, when I see an image of something, I'm like, oh, I do want that. And I'll search for it somewhere else. So it still puts that in my head of like, you're right. I do need a tie-dye sweatsuit. And I go buy one. Even if I'm not buying it off Instagram.
I'm not even a wrestling fan, and I bought a Steve Austin hoodie today. That was over it was over $100. This is a self-help podcast. I bought a $115 Steve Austin hoodie, and I don't even like wrestling.
Hey, what are we doing? It's ridiculous. And especially during the quarantine, it feels good to buy. It feels
it's like
good
Christmas every day when you get that gift, the package.
Literally, I feel empty inside if I don't have 2 packages on their way to me at all times. I always need an item.
This morning I went down to get my mail and I had a package and I was so excited, and it was my Propecia, and I was like, I can't be excited for hair loss medicine, but it's still a gift. It's still a gift.
Hey, we get like shampoo, dry shampoo, deodorant. It feels good to open it up.
It does. But okay, go back to when you were a kid and think about getting that shit on Christmas.
So pissed.
You'd be like, well, I hope they wouldn't be buying me Propecia. I hope that would be,
never know.
That would just
be younger and younger these days. But if you're a kid and you even socks, you're disgusted by your parents and household, like my mom would wrap like moisturizer. I'm like, how fucking dare you buy this for me? Don't wrap it up.
Yeah, exactly.
One of my presents with a household item. That's fucking rude.
Do you think there's a correlation between that now? Like, I bet okay, might be conspiracy, but Amazon must have known that we like opening up packages, no matter what it is.
They probably have a marketing team who designed that tape that's easy to rip, who designed the boxes, all of it. All of it is designed.
All of it.
An Amazon box is like the best thing you can see.
It really, well, that's like I studied like economics and marketing, and they were talking about like in a supermarket, how they put like the sugary cereal at eye level for kids and stuff. And when
Totally.
it's all ignorance is bliss. I like to think before I knew about dehydration, I just didn't care about water and I just drink. But now that I know about it, I'm stressed about being dehydrated, which is probably worse for me than just being dehydrated.
I agree. I wish I never learned to read because now I know everything and now I'm stressed. I'm like, am I exercising? You read one article, you're like, oh my God, I'm sleeping too much. I need silk pillowcases. Oh, I should meditate more. And there's information.
Wait, what about silk pillowcases? I need to know about this.
Someone said silk pillowcases for hair health, and skin health, which could be good for you, for alopecia. So, but there's so much information that I'm like, I wish I didn't know any of this. It kind of reminds me of like when I was like in 4th grade, I learned what a calorie was. I wish I could go back to before that time and just like not know and just eat. But now everything even if I'm not like dieting or whatever, I know like, oh, apple 100. And then next thing, every time I eat, it's like, oh, yep, that's, I know exact calorie amounts. And I wish I did it because that can ruin your fucking life.
It really can. I went through, not to get all sad on this, but I went through eating disorders in high school. I was real bad. And now I'm good. Like I was heavy at the beginning of quarantine because I went through a breakup and then I lost about 50 pounds and I've stayed healthy through it.
Yeah.
But I'm worried about when real life goes back and I don't have the like every day off to like, I meditate every day. I do yoga every day. I run every other day. Like, I'm not going to have that time. Am I going to go back to like?
I know. You have to take it one day at a time. Don't panic now because you have a lot of time to sit around until things.
Now, don't you understand why I'm losing my hair?
Right. It's true though. Like I run every day. I have a Peloton bike. I do meditate. I read so many books and I'm like, I don't want to go back to busyness when I didn't even have time to eat healthy. I don't want to be fat again.
I know it's not. And then like I like cheated myself and had some Chinese food over Christmas time and like sweets. I'm like, is what I'm doing worth it? And that's like, oh wait, that's just like a drug in my brain. Like it's not worth it. I can't be like eating Chinese food every day or like having chocolate. Yeah.
I know I go out over Christmas week, Chinese as well, and a lot of sugar. And the whole time I was having an existential crisis. I was like, should I just call it quits and be 200 pounds again? Because this feels really good.
It feels so good,
but you're also mentally, you're not well when you're
100%
doing all that stuff, but it feels really good to eat all
it. But it's funny because then you sound like, I don't know, you sound like I feel like it's preachy where it's like, I did used to play video games all the time and it might felt good in the moment, but I wasn't able to grow. Like I didn't do anything for myself.
Yeah.
But other people can. That's what I don't understand is people who can just be calm, who don't have to have I have an anxiety attack maybe every day about something silly. Like, I don't get how people are calm.
I don't get how people are calm. I don't get how people can be like, just keep chugging away. And I don't know about you, but for my podcast, that's only has 3 episodes out. I've had a panic attack almost daily about like, why am I doing this? Who would listen to? You see like the stats, there's like 500,000 podcasts out there. You're like, what's my purpose? Read articles that are like, your podcast needs a hook. And you're like, shit, I don't have a hook. And then you start spiraling and then you spiral about the promo. It's like a lot. And it's easy to not get those kind of things when you just never start anything new. So that's the risk of like of not playing video games all the time is if you have anxiety, you overthink everything you do.
It's true. And it's like, okay, so I didn't have any big like promo behind myself other than just being kind of like a local comedian when I started the podcast. I'm in 6 months of doing it and I got to 10,000 listens today, actually, the day that we're recording this. And it's still, but when I got to that, like when I passed that, I was like,
Yeah.
why, like, you shouldn't feel special. Like
Right.
10,000, like before that, I was like, if I get to that, like, oh my fucking God, it's just
Right.
weird. The numbers are kind of arbitrary. And that's why I enjoy not just that. And I hope this is why it works, but just like conversation, you
Yeah.
know, like, I never met you before. And now we've been able to talk, and I know you a little bit more because I was a fan of you. And
Mhm.
that's what's worth it more, because whenever I get that next bump of numbers, it's just what's next.
It goes, and I don't know if you saw Soul, the new Pixar movie yet.
I want,
It kind of is similar to this in that the guy, I don't want to spoil it, but he's kind of depressed. He's a music teacher. He wants to be a jazz artist, and he gets this jazz gig. He's like, this is it. This is going to change my life. And then after he does it, he's like, what's next? And the singer's like, we go home and we do it tomorrow. And he's like, that's it. He's like alone. And that's why you can't rely on any sort of milestone. You have to enjoy the ride, and the ride sometimes sucks. Because even for me, like when I did Wildin' Out, I was like, the minute I hit 10K on Instagram, it's over for you guys. We're done. I'm gonna blow up. And it's like, no, you actually have to keep going, or else, and you have to keep, and it's not like you get 10K or 20K and it's like your life changes. It really doesn't. And so
yeah.
we always rely on certain numbers and certain milestones, and you're like, after that, then I'll be happy.
It's kind of like a diet where it's like,
Mhm.
if you think that there's an end goal to your diet, then you're never going to be fit. Like the day that I learned, like, oh, whatever I choose to do next is what I'm going to do until I die, because I need to pick something that I'll stick with. So that's kind of what, like, I've been trying to do, is pick, have things that I do enjoy, but just be healthy. And I think it's funny because you see so many people that, like, I was a fan of when I was a kid, like, fall off, and you wonder what happened, but it's as you get older and you just realize that people get tired. You get tired.
Yeah.
And I think that's where anxiety works the best. Like,
Yeah.
maybe you and me being anxious every day
Mhm.
is what then pushes us to just, like, never stop.
Right. Totally. I do think anxiety is helpful with that. It can be harmful, but it does keep me being like, oh, I should also do this so I don't. I mean, pretty much anything I do at this point is just like feeding my anxiety, because I'm like, oh, you didn't do enough today. Post another TikTok, and then you're like, okay, I feel better. But I was gonna say,
Crazy. And
it's crazy, but you
what were you
do.
saying?
Um, you have to get rid of that. Like, once I get to this, I'll be happy, because then you lose so much of your life, because you're just like in a different place. You're just waiting for like the summer when you have a hot body, or a year from now when you have more comedy accolades, and then you'll look back and be like, wow, I didn't spend enough time enjoying it, and now I hate myself.
Yeah. It's fun. You hear old people say before they die, like, you don't want to miss out on experience, like, you don't want to regret not doing things. But I don't think people actually do that. Like, I try to do I try to make each day something else, and I do get tired from it.
Mhm.
But I don't think there's 3 days in a row where I've just, like, sat and watched TV at night.
Yeah. No, I don't think so either. I used to do that a lot in like middle and high school, and so now I'm like, no, we have to do things like every day.
100%. Yeah.
I will, to avoid work and social media, I will like overly bake or cook or read books, but I think that's equally productive to life. If you do stuff like that, if you kind of like bury yourself in like random activities that isn't laying around and watching TV.
Well, that's like, I love running because of that. Because it's like, until you get a text when you're running, and then you're running trying to like text back, and it's totally counterproductive. But you do have to fill your day with small things, and it sucks. So like, my morning routine is I wake up, I meditate, I do yoga with Sarah Beth. Shout out Yoga with Sarah Beth. I use Headspace for meditation, and yeah, Headspace is fantastic. It's great. It's useful. And then I run, but in between those things, I'll be checking how many views did I get? Like, did I get a new like on Insta? And it's like, wait, but I'm doing all these things to stop that. But I can't even pause 5 minutes in between meditating and doing yoga to check my fucking stats.
Totally. It's fucked up. I think for 2021, I want to get rid of the phone all the time mentality. I kind of want to turn my phone more into like a landline. It used to be the phone's on the wall and we're not on it all the time. And I think from now on, I want to like write somewhere else and then do my things on the apps and then walk away, because what I have going right now is pretty unsustainable.
How many hours a day are in your phone?
I don't even know. It feels.
You have the stats on where it tells you?
No, absolutely not. I refuse.
I have that, and it hurts. It hurts every time.
What is it, like 12 hours or more?
No, it was 8 hours. It was 8 hours.
Okay. But it's like hard because our phone is not only it's like all the apps, and then you have your Spotify and you're running, like everything's in the phone. I need something else.
Yeah, like I meditate using my phone. But I like writing longhand. I like writing my jokes longhand. That is something.
Yeah. I like
I'm
doing
not always
or typing on my computer with like no Wi-Fi, so I can just get everything out faster. But writing.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yes, writing on my phone is something that will never. I'm lying to myself if I say that's what I'm doing.
I think I like fantasize having like a typewriter in a big room with like books surrounding me. But then I think, does society ever go back? Like, honestly, do we ever go back to phones on the wall? Do we ever go back to like, no, I don't, unless like an apocalypse happens. That's honestly like we get wiped out of the grid. Do we ever go back?
We do, unless a huge movement takes over about the danger. Okay, you know how like our food system used to be like in the 80s and 90s, everyone was eating processed foods, and now everyone's like vegetables and plant-based. Okay, so I think that might happen with phones. There's going to be a movement to educate kids on the dangers of phone use, and people are going to distance themselves from phones, and it's going to be like farm to table. They want the more organic local stuff, and I think some people might end up doing that kind of thing. Maybe not landline, but definitely having your phone away from you and like regulated apps a little more.
Yeah. Do you ever think, how did people get fame? How did people get fame or get popular before? So like, cause that's all I know.
Right.
So like, I don't even understand like celebrities back then.
Repeated TV, like right now, a movie or TV won't like make you famous really. But back then, game changer. Late night set, game changer. Yeah. And there was also less entertainers. Now everyone and their fucking mom is a meme writer, an influencer, comedian, Twitter person. Back then it was like, oh sure, Jennifer Aniston is famous, that makes sense, she wanted to be. It, like back then, if you wanted to be, you just had to like go to an audition.
I wonder if that's true. Like I do, like they probably saw it as so stressful.
Right.
But they probably see what we do as stressful now. You know what I mean? Like having to be on your phone all the time.
Right.
And
oh my
like,
God. We were listening to a podcast and some woman was like, it's easy for younger people now because they have their phones. They can just make a TV show on your phone. I'm like, you do not understand how much actual pressure and work it is to be able to do that. I wish we could get started in like 1989 where you do well and then someone's like, here's a TV show.
100%.
And here's Larry David to write it for you.
That's the only thing I'm hoping is if I go bald, I'll look like Larry David.
That would be great. Yeah.
I think the non-Jewish Larry David, a less funny non-Jewish Larry David.
You're not Jewish? Right.
I'm not. People really. I was just telling you about Christmas.
I know. Well, a lot of Jews do the Christmas thing now.
That's true. Everyone assumes I'm Jewish. I was doing a stand-up show, That's how long since I've done one. I just called it a stand-up show. And a guy yelled from the audience, "I don't like this Jew-haired motherfucker on stage."
Oh, wow.
He was in a good Charlotte shirt, so I feel like it makes sense. But yeah. And I couldn't be like, "I'm not Jewish," because then it sounds like I'm like supporting him.
Totally.
But
come on, man. Wow, that's
I hate him too. No,
yeah, come on. Here's my swastika tattoo.
Do you have any tattoos?
Nah.
Me
I
neither.
don't have anything meaningful, and I have a really pasty skin that tattoos on really white skin just look like trash.
It's true. Yeah, I don't have any. I was offered to get a head tattoo, and I was like, I don't think that's my first tattoo.
Oh.
Not a head tattoo guy.
Where on your head?
It would have been like back here.
Oh, under the hair?
One of my favorite rappers invited me to get one, and I was like, I had to turn it down. Yeah.
Man. Well, that's how you know that you're secure with yourself, because most people, if there was their favorite rapper, would say, "Yeah, sure, dude." That you are stable, secure, and also know that you probably need to get a job in the future.
So can we go back to the point? This is called Bucked Up for reasons, because I get a little stoned and I forget where we're going. I go on a tangent. But so I feel like your podcast and your stand-up persona are very you. Like, we've been talking for almost an hour now. Is it weird having the kind of like two personas online of like the wild and out you, and then as you were saying, like, it's tough for your podcast because you're trying to talk about politics, but does that affect your anxiety and stuff? Like, do you feel like there's two personalities online?
It's hard because when you get to like, I have like 45,000 Instagram followers, so when you get to that point, you're like, okay, I have to understand what my character is through the lens of all these people. Like, before While and Out, I probably would have just posted, like, I don't know, tweet screenshots and funny takes on Brett Kavanaugh, blah, blah, blah. But now it's more like my manager and I are working to be like, okay, what can we put out that adds, like, our next year is going to be like, what is the Maddie Smith character? You know, like, is it the girl who needs to do squats? Is it, I think that's the hardest thing for me is like consistency throughout because of the show. And I get jealous of like Instagram people who I see who I'm like, oh, that's who you are. And it's not for me, but I'm jealous that you have your thing, and that's awesome. You know, like influencers who are very like, or like a mom influencer. Oh, that's their thing, is pics of the kids and getting sponsored by J. Crew. But for me, it's like a little chaotic. And I also think for like a comedy, like an industry future, it's good to have like a persona. And so that's where I fall. And, you know, like for JFL auditions, they're always looking for like a person who they can say that's the person. And for me, I'm just kind of been like, I've always just been like funny. And it's hard for me to have like a consistent, oh, there's the blah, blah, blah girl. So I think that's what I'm working on now.
Yeah, I think that helps me in the way of seeing my dad be like a death metal drummer. And he also worked real jobs, because you can't like afford to have a family with that. Okay. But like, be like, oh, that's yourself. Because have you ever done hallucinogens, mushrooms, anything?
No, I should though, because my friend said shrooms would clear me out.
See, that's how I feel, is when I did mushrooms, or when it's a combination between that and the growing up. It's like, I do feel like I just have to like settle into, like Duncan Trussell says, just like be like, settle into you. Yeah. And that's kind of how I feel like I'm not going to go crazy. Like if people don't like me, or they think I'm weird, or they think like, I don't know, I talk about spiritual stuff, or I talk about rap too much, or whatever. It's just like, I'm just trying to be who I am.
Right.
But it's also tough, because then it's a slower build, I feel like.
It's a slower build. It's an easier catch if you're the blah, blah. Like hot girls in comedy are crushing it right now because they're the hot girls in comedy. You know, it's very easy to be the guy who always does political jokes. They're like, oh, let's turn to him for this hot take, blah, blah, blah. But I do think if you think about yourself in like 10, 20 years, and who do you ultimately want to be? Probably closer to yourself than a persona.
Yeah.
So what's more sustainable is
Because then you're going to hate yourself. You know, you see so many unhappy older people, whether it be our parents or, you know, people like that. And it's like they gave their life to something that wasn't their own, like a job, like working an office job or whatever. It's like they gave their life to something else. And I think that's probably my biggest fear, and where my most anxiety like kicks in is like, am I going to have to live a life that's not my own?
Totally. I also think, you know, the one comforting thing about comedy is if you love stand-up more than anything, but you never get any industry pull, you can always be like, there's always a back room where I will be performing. Like if you're an actor and you don't get a gig, like you're fucked. But if you're stand-up and you don't get like a festival or something, you're like, okay, well, it doesn't matter because I can go be me at this bar show and it's going to feel really good.
Yeah.
So I think that is why stand-up is the coolest.
When's the last time you performed?
Well, last week was Christmas, but I think last weekend or something. I do like rooftop shows here.
Yeah, Rhode Island. So I'm in Boston, and Rhode Island's close, and Rhode Island's pretty much there's some might there, and New Hampshire also I can do shows at, but it's been able to but it's not the same.
It's not the same, but there was like for the month of December, I was like, oh, who even needs stand-up anymore? I'm blah, blah, blah. And then I did a rooftop show and fucking crushed. And I was like, this is why I do this. And then the vaccine news, you're like, okay, just keep it going a little while longer. And then we're back.
Isn't it crazy to think like I was averaging 11 to 15 sets a week beforehand, which, you know, I live a little bit outside the city, so I have to drive in, which is a lot. But like when I get 3 or 4, I'm like, oh my God, like I got 3 sets this week. But before, that's also, it's sad because with stand-up, it's not like you can just write stand-up and it be good. Like 11 sets is how you get a good set. Like get a good joke is you work it out 11 times in that one week, not 3 times every other week, because you can't like grow as fast.
That's why it's like right now, I think just have fun. Don't even put pressure on yourself for new material, because when you're not doing it every night, there's no way. I mean, you can bring like a notepad up, but then it's also like, do I want to ruin my only show this week with new jokes that might bomb? I think just have fun while you're doing it. And
how old were you when you started?
What'd you say?
How old were you when you started?
24. I'm like a little over 4 years in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you take any breaks during that time?
No, this was the first one. Once I started, it was that was it.
What happened at 24 that made you just like, what kicked you into just like, this is what I'm doing?
Well, I was always funny. I was always the funny one in the group, always the big relief. And then 24, I was a year or so out of college. I moved to New York City. Always knew I kind of wanted to be a comedian.
So you moved to New York before you did stand-up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I moved there for a job. And then because I was going to do it in Rochester, where I used to live, right before I moved here. And I was always like, no, why would I do it here? The comedian, I went to like an open mic to watch, and I was like, no, they suck. But then I was like, why would I do it in Rochester? I want to be in New York. And so when I moved to New York, that's when I was like, all right, let's fucking do this. You're anonymous. You don't know anyone here. If you do badly, you will never see them again. And then I didn't do badly, and I just kept going.
Were you a writer? Like, did you always like, do you write your jokes?
Yeah. I was always a writer. Different kinds of writing though. Like in high school, I was like a creative nonfiction, like fiction, and then college I started to write more satire, and then I was the editor-in-chief of my newspaper in college. So I was always like a big writer, and then right after school I started dabbling in more like satire writing again. And then once I started doing stand up. I just started writing stand up all the time. You know, when you first do stand up and you're like, oh my God, I have so many ideas. Everything's funny to me. It's not like that anymore. But when I first started, like everything was funny. Now I'm like,
So
I have no ideas.
yeah, you're not a bright and bushy eyed anymore.
No, not
I feel
anymore.
so. I used a fake ID to go out to LA and perform on Kill Tony when I was 18 for the first time.
Nice.
So that was cool. But then I think that kind of ruined me, because then I went out to LA the next year and used a fake ID, and I got on Kill Tony randomly again in the main room of the Comedy Store.
Mhm.
And so those were like my first 2 or 3 performances ever.
Mhm.
And I think doing that was like kind of like, I don't know, like someone who smokes too much weed, like
Yeah.
drinks too much in the beginning, like it's too
Totally.
much, it's like an overdose a little bit. And so I had to take time off, and I was still a comedy fan, but I didn't then start up seriously till my senior year of college. And it was like a 3-year break where it's like maybe I performed 3 or 4 times in that time. But
Yeah, but
I was just,
you're also super busy, and
that's true. What'd you study in college?
I studied economics like you did.
Mm.
It was hard.
Are you still in debt? Yeah, me too. Love it.
I think I have 35K. I used to have 50K, so I got it down. But dude, it fucking sucks. I mean, obviously, you need.
You just had a Boston accent right there, dude. That fucking sucks. You just had a Boston accent when you said that. That was
I
really.
think Buffalo and Boston are very similar, very flat accents. The debt thing is awful because, you know, I didn't even go into econ, and then but then I'm like, I also developed kind of a big personality in college, so that probably helps my comedy. And then you meet the guys who didn't go to college and they just started comedy when they were 18, and you're like, I hate you. You think you're meant to do this? Fuck off. And they have
It makes me upset too. Yeah.
Totally. You're like, go to college. Come back when you're a fucking adult. You know, I'm like, I don't want to be at a bar with an 18-year-old. So you don't want to be that guy either. So I think I'd rather be in 50K of debt than be the guy who didn't go to college and thinks they're put on earth to be a stand-up comedian.
Yeah, that's actually, so I was in high school when I wanted to do stand-up. I got in a really bad hockey accident, and I had to lay in like a dark room for a month.
Oh, wow.
And I couldn't even listen to music. I couldn't talk to anyone. All I could do was listen to people talk. So I just listened to stand-up.
Wow.
But then I was like, I went to college, and as I said, like I didn't do it. I went to LA and did it twice, but I didn't do it much. So I was kind of happy because I had this knowledge planted in my head, but then I got to go to college and get kind of like my ass kicked for a little bit.
Totally. You go to college, you do your shit.
You realize life isn't that fun. It is fun. I actually really did enjoy college.
I think I enjoyed it, but I did think it was going to be a little bit more epic, you know, because we all watch these
100%. Yeah.
Animal House, old school chicks making out with each other. And then you go to your first frat party and you're like, everyone's kind of ugly. No one's hot here. And the beer tastes like piss. And then after 4 years, you're like, oh, I think that's how it was supposed to be. But for 4 years, I was like, am I at the wrong college? No, they're all the same.
That's exactly how I felt. Yeah.
Yeah. You thought it was going to be some epic rave, glow in the dark shit. But my school was like a town in the middle of the nowhere where the frat houses were like literally on stilts and made of like 2 planks. And it was just like.
Same here. My school is in the middle of nowhere too. Very small.
Where did you go to
school? Wheaton College.
Oh, yeah.
Where'd you go?
Is that a liberal arts school?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I went to Geneseo upstate as soon as.
Okay.
Yeah. Similar. And just when they're in the middle of nowhere, you just drink just to forget where you are.
I got my drinking out of my system though. Like I used to drink a lot, and now I can have 1 drink a week or 2 drinks a week and I'll be fine.
I drank so much. I blacked out like 70 times in college. Weekend, pure blackout. And then now, same thing. 1 drink, I'm like, I'm done for like the month.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say same thing. I black out every other night.
I wish. I love blacking out. You disappear. You're so fun. But I think I have like an alcohol intolerance now. I think my liver is literally like, no, we're done here, because of how much I poisoned my body when I was in school.
It's funny how I feel like we have very similar thought processes on things, because that's exactly how I feel. It's like I had two White Claws the other night, and I literally was stumbling back to my apartment.
What is that? I don't know if it's
I used to
scientific.
drink a handle of Jack Daniels, and I was fine.
I used to be chugging tequila, 8 shots of vodka before we left the dorms, just to make sure in case there wasn't any alcohol at the party, like pre-gaming with just shot after shot. And now I don't know if it's scientific, but my body rejects alcohol now.
I smoke a lot of weed though, so I still have that. I still have that fight.
I want to get back into it because it makes me more creative, but it makes me really, really anxious.
So we'll finish on this because we're rounding right about an hour, but I used to be a very lazy kid. And then when I started smoking weed later in life, it made me start running. And that's why I run, and that's why I'm active, is weed actually makes me active for some weird reason. It affects me differently.
Interesting. I feel like, okay, here's my strategy with weed. If I started again, I'm going to have an activity ready for when I am high. Okay. So it's not going to be empty space. I'm going to exercise or like something like that.
That's the best thing to do, is because it makes empty space fine. So if you're just fine doing nothing, but if you force yourself to do stuff, then it makes that even better too.
Definitely.
Like after this podcast, I'm going to go smoke and go for a run or something. It's cold, but it's a nice day.
It's nice to run in the cold though, because then when you get back inside, you're very warm.
Exactly. Thank you so much for being on. I appreciate you giving up your time, and I had a really great time getting to know you and talking to you.
Of course. Thank you for having me. Hopefully we can be on a show together at some point in our lives.
100%. And when everything opens back up, I'd love to have you on in person. I'm in New York all the time.
Okay.
I'm actually going to New York for New Year's Eve. So
oh, really?
Fun time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Doing podcast stuff.
Nice. Cool.
But do you want to plug your podcast, your shit online?
Guys, I'm on So Maddy Smith on Instagram, and then on my podcast, That Time of the Week with Maddy Smith, me and a rotation of gals every week shooting the shit.
Well, check out all her stuff. Check out her stand-up. It's so funny. Watch all her clips, and you can see her on Wild 'N Out too. And for me, you can follow me at Sam C. Buck or at Bucked Up Podcast, and like and subscribe. And we'll talk to you next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.